Where do you usually put your energy, your attention, and your focus toward? Does it usually lean toward the positivity or negativity? Does it usually lead to productivity or inaction, maybe even laziness? It's very imperative that when you think about where you want your life to go, which we all do, we all have desires, we all have goals, we all have ambitions. When you think about those things, you really have to take into account what it is that you're putting your attention toward in the current moment, because what you're doing now will dictate what you will create. My name is Peter Abundant, aka Dr. Abundant, Ph.D. of Metaphysical Sciences, which is the study of spirituality. I am also the author of The Enlightened Shadow and Spiritual, Not Religious, both available on Amazon and Audible. I was about to make this video on toxic relationships. And as I was meditating on the topic today and just really sitting with this topic, one thing I noticed is that it didn't feel good to me to think about the topic. It didn't feel good to me to focus on the negative aspects of a relationship, even though all of my content focuses on positivity. The reality is, when you're dealing with creating videos and writing material, you have to really consider the perspective of the person who will come across this information, right? This wisdom, and where they will be at when they see or recognize the material, right? So if they're looking at a video, they have to recognize, okay, what does the thumbnail look like? What does it say? And so you have to appeal to a certain aspect of them in order to draw them in to actually watch the video, listen to the podcast, read the book. So when we think about getting people's attention, we often know that usually, unfortunately, negative attention usually will create a sense of overwhelming appeal to people, right? Negative things, drama, traumatic events, toxic energy, will usually gets people attention over, say, positive, beautiful things. Why that is? Well, my belief is because our very nature is so pure as far as consciousness goes, that we're in fact intrigued by the negativity, because really that's not who you are, you see. But nonetheless, when it comes to creating material, topics, things to get people's attention, we as YouTube creators want to get your attention by speaking to certain aspects of you that's going to say, okay, yes, I want to click that video. Yes, I want to watch that. Yes, I want to read that book, because it appeals to the part of you that isn't that. So you're trying to attract, or you're attracted to your opposite. Okay. Now, I was considering making this video on toxic relationships, but then I got into recognizing my feelings about it and how it didn't feel good to really get into that topic. It didn't feel good to think about the toxic relationships that I've been through in my life. It didn't really feel good to break down and talk for 30 minutes about toxic relationships and toxic spirituality and all those different things and layers of possibilities and where I can go on the topic. And so, you know what? As somebody who really practices self-awareness, mindfulness, I recognize that I probably shouldn't do that topic. I probably shouldn't talk about that thing, even though it could be very appealing and people will be attracted to it initially. But because of my spiritual journey and where I am, I just didn't feel good about doing it. And so I had to take ownership of that, and I had to recognize that within myself, and thus let go of doing that topic. Now, there may come a time where I actually talk about that topic and really, figure it out as far as how to approach it in a way that feels good to me. But ultimately, I didn't want to lean into the negative, because that's not who I am. I'm not a negative person. Yes, things happen, negativity happens, and that usually only pertains to how you see the situation. You see, positivity and negativity, when we look at it in the universe and in the world, it's really just a subjective point of view based on where you're at and what it is that you desire. That allows you to define something as negative or positive. But when we have things coming at us from the universe, we have to really be responsible about what we are receptive to, what you are putting your energy toward, what you are putting your focus in, your attention toward. Are you thinking and being entertained and looking for the negativity, right? Because, say, for example, I talk about toxic relationships. What that is going to do for 30 minutes, however long I talk about that topic, that is going to align with toxic energy. That is going to bring my frequency to a space of that or those toxic relationships. And if I'm talking and sharing it with you, then it is going to also bring your frequency closer to that of experiencing a toxic relationship. Now, yes, we can talk about our experiences and we can talk in terms of relation and relating to one another and understanding one another and being, comrades having the same experience, right? Friendship, a bond based on those experiences. But still, it is not good to continue to linger, to sit, to soak in that energy, that frequency, that vibration, because guess what it's going to do? It's going to bring you to that same experience, is going to allow you to repeat that pattern, because patterns ultimately are just a consistent frequency that you are sustaining throughout a period of time. And what I want you to understand is you have to be responsible and you can be mindful about acknowledging, the quote unquote negative aspects of life and the experiences. But you must focus your attention on the positive, on what you want versus what you don't want. So think about what you're watching on social media. Think about what you're watching on TV. Think about the conversations you're having with your coworkers and your friends. Do they lean into the negative? Are they conversations about, who has the most medications, who is sick the most, who has dealt with or had the most fights, who has dealt with the most problems in their relationship, in their current relationship, in their past relationship? Constantly talking about those things is perpetuating a continuation of experiencing those things. Now, I am not saying to just ignore them and act like they didn't happen. They very well did. But because you are not claiming that for your present and your future, then it is not imperative that you continue to talk about it now, that you continue to bring your attention toward that you continue to watch that kind of material, right? Watch those kind of shows, watch that kind of channel, that you listen to that kind of music, that you read those kind of books, that you engage in those kind of conversations. Even when it relates to spirituality, there is a toxic side to spirituality where you are intrigued by the negative aspects of, spiritual warfare, and they are trying to get you and they are not wanting you to gain your own power and understand who you truly are as a creator, and they this and they that. You have to be mindful that you are not being led down a path of fear, a path of feeling like something is out to get you. Because remember, this entire universe is a reflection of you. So if you are thinking that something is out to get you, that someone is trying to hurt you, that is essentially you trying to hurt yourself. You have to take responsibility for over everything that's happening in this universe, because it is a projection of what's going on within you. And once you do that, then you begin to experience a world that is full of light, full of joy. And even the quote unquote negative things that may happen, you will see and understand them from a more empowered point of view, because now you're connected with consciousness. Consciousness never dies. Consciousness doesn't get hurt. And so when you recognize things from that lens, then you only see experiences. You only see expansion. You only see growth. You only see and experience awakening, enlightenment. So I want you to really take a lot of time to practice self-awareness and think about how you spend your day. Think about where you spend your attention. Think about what it is you desire. Do those two things match? In many cases, they don't match. And so your job is to assess, analyze, and look at your day in and day out routines. The things that you do commonly, right? The things that you do most often, frequently, every single day. Does it match with the desire and the thing that you feel you are meant to achieve? So if you're waking up late, okay, and you are going to get coffee and then you're running to work, but you're feeling anxious because you're always late, you're always just like right on time, but just anxious, things are a mess in the morning. Does that match with, say, you wanting to cultivate a sense of peace in your life? Those two things don't match, right? So in order to cultivate peace, start your day earlier, right? I know you may want to sleep in, but then it extends itself out to going further and recognizing, okay, you need to go to sleep earlier. You need to finish and wrap up watching those shows. So that way you can go to sleep early and then wake up early, allotting enough time for you to take your time in the morning, right? Go get your coffee, taking your time, not worrying about how long the drive-through line is, and actually getting to work 10, 15 minutes early. So that way you can get acclimated to the space and you can start your day off productive and peaceful. Which will eventually lead to, right, you ending your day that way, peaceful. So you have to recognize these correlations. Now, if you want a loving and beautiful relationship, then you have to take stock and looking at, okay, if you are dating, what do those conversations look like? How are you leading in your desires for a relationship? Meaning, how are you taking responsibility over the things that you want? If you want a loving relationship, are you communicating with love all the time? Now, that doesn't mean that you appease the person that you are dating or you're with, right? Just to appease them. No, it means that you recognize that you can communicate and acknowledge your desires or issues from a place of love instead of a place of frustration, instead of a place of anger, resentment, bitterness, fear, ultimately. When you recognize what you want is the key toward what you need to be, then you set the tone for the present moment. You see, this is why getting into your future self is very important. When you understand and you align yourself with the future self you know yourself to be, your true self, then you use that as a beacon to signal you or speak to you in the present moment as to what you need to do right now. If you see yourself in the future as somebody who is fit, athletic, in shape, good health, living long and healthy, then that determines what you should be doing right now. You should be eating well. You should be constantly active, right? You should be taking care of yourself, your well-being, and your physical body. If money is what you see for your future self, then you need to be assessing where you're at right now when it comes to money and what you can do to make more money and build upon that in order to create a reality where that future self becomes your present self. You see? So it's important, it's imperative to recognize the importance of putting your attention toward the positive. The positive is your desire, what you want, rather than putting your attention toward the negative, which you don't want, but is intriguing. I can admit it is intriguing. There are plenty of times where I would start a movie on Netflix and I'll start watching it and I'll know what it's about. And it can be about somebody struggling. It could be about somebody who is maybe fighting. It can be extremely violent. And, my past self was really into those things. As long as there's a message behind it, then I can get behind it. But nowadays, I've noticed that if the frequency of the movie or the show doesn't match the frequency of my desire, of my future self, I just cannot sit through it. I cannot get past the first 5 or 10 minutes because there is something within me that says, this just doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel good because the frequency is not matching. The frequency of that film, that show, that video, that song, that book, if it is lower than the current frequency that I'm having, because remember, we are always on a trajectory of increasing our frequency. In other words, getting better, getting stronger, getting wiser, awakening more and more, being more conscious about your journey. And if you are not going on the trajectory of ascendance, then it is a waste of time, to say the least. And so make sure that everything that you are experiencing and you are incorporating in your life, whether it be for the moment, for the hour, for the day, for the week, make sure that it aligns with the desire, your desire, ultimately the future self, your true self. That is the self, that is the path you are intentionally taking. And that path does not incorporate you putting your attention and your focus towards something that is lower than you in terms of frequency, that is less than you in terms of frequency. You must understand that frequency is everything. What you put your energy toward, your mind toward, is everything. And so if you want a particular thing, make sure that you are putting your mind and your attention and your focus toward things that are as closely aligned with that desire as possible. And what will happen is it will lend itself and build momentum. Inertia will be created where one thing will lead to another thing of a slightly higher frequency of vibration. And then that will lead to another and another and another until eventually you are there. To eventually you are them, meaning the self that you understand and desire to be, your true self. So positive and negative really function in terms of desire and things that you don't desire, right? Desirable, undesirable. Those things are going to guide you to your purpose, to a deeper understanding of self. And so what I want to invite you to do is say, hey, be more responsible about the things that you are putting your mind towards and what you are focusing on. Be more responsible about your speech, what you're saying, what you're thinking. This is not about shaming yourself, judging yourself. This is not about being critical, so to speak, of yourself. This is simply about being mindful and intentional. You see, criticism almost functions in the realm of the undesirable, right? Almost in the realm of judgment. Whereas mindfulness functions in a different space where it's more, complete, wholesome, pure, where you are just simply acknowledging that what you want is what you are to focus on. Simple as that. And so as you take this journey, I really want you to learn to have the awareness where you recognize, you know what? I want to support this actor or this person or this artist or this author or this content creator but what they are making doesn't align with what I desire. And therefore, I must move on. I must change what it is that I am consuming, that I am eating, what I am doing, to make sure that all that I am being is aligning with all that I desire. And that guarantees the manifestation of the desire. So please focus on the positive. Focus on your desire. Put your intention towards that. Put your focus on learning to be self-aware, to recognize when something you may do isn't in alignment with you. Even if people may suggest it, even if experts, mentors, teachers, parents, friends, family, they may say, hey, you should do this. If it doesn't align with who you are, then don't do it. At the end of it all, if you do things that align with who you are, you will always be successful at the end. So stay focused, stay truthful, stay you. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and download this free ebook. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.